Chapter 151. It was past 7 o'clock when Zicheng, the man who cut Zhang Nanfeng's peach blossoms, returned to Yihe Island with Wei Ran in his arms. When these people had breakfast together, Chen Wei remembered that they went to the mine before and said, "Brother Cheng, I have arranged for people to mine the mine that Cheng Shuxian gave us with a generous gift before." People. Zicheng nodded. Winter is coming soon, and Sheng Wanling said that he needs a batch of winter clothes. I heard that there is a relatively large-scale wild cotton field in Wangking. Let's go and have a look today. Gu Ming will contact you after confirmation. Chen Wei nodded, glanced at Wei Ran and said, "Or is it Su Yi, Wei Ran?" Zicheng turned to Wei Ran, who was lying on the rattan chair. "It's okay, I'll take her out for a walk." Gu Ming stood up first, "Then I'll prepare first." Because you can't just take everything when you are away from home. Even if Zicheng is carrying teleportation, he still needs to prepare in a day RV and essentials. After all, Wei Ran is not around, so he can't do whatever he wants anytime, anywhere without any scruples. In the days when Wei Ran was not around, these people felt that they missed her even more in the days without Wei Ran. Although Wei Ran would regularly place sufficient supplies in the villa, in the past they were too lazy to ask Wei Ran for anything they needed, and she would find it right away without having to rummage through boxes and cabinets. Gu Ming drove out the man off-road car. This time there are fewer people, so there is no need to choose such a big RV. Wangcheng is not far from the southern border, only 2 hours. Zhang Nanfeng looked at the satellite map, and there will be a very famous scenic spot on the way. He suggested Brother Cheng, "The distance is not far anyway, otherwise don't teleport, the scenery along the way is pleasant, maybe Xiao Ran will like it. We can also stay in that scenic spot when we come back." Zicheng hugged Wei Ran, got into the car directly, and only said yes, yes. They went straight through the desert through the underground secret passage. First things first, so they went straight to the cotton fields in Wangcheng as soon as they came out. But Zhang Nanfeng was right, the scenery along the way was indeed beautiful. Under the blue sky and white clouds, a road is almost straight and endless, with a large field of wildflowers blooming on both sides of the road. There was a gentle breeze. Zicheng was sitting on the sofa in the living room of the car. Wei Ran leaned into Zicheng's arms and fell asleep peacefully with her white, delicate and shiny face facing the car window. He whispered, "The scenery is really good. There is also a primeval forest scenic spot nearby. This is your favorite." Wei Ran's fingers touched his palm lightly. "It seems that I really want to go." Zicheng smiled lightly. "Well, got it, can I take you camping tonight?" Wei Ran ticked her fingers twice this time. It is good, it is good." Zhang Nanfeng took a peek back at the scene that seemed to be Zicheng talking to himself. If it was someone else, they would definitely think that the leader of Nanjing had some mental problems because of his partner. Because now the southern border is uncertain about Zicheng going in and out with Wei Ran every day. The most widely circulated one is that Zicheng, who is cold outside and extremely affectionate inside, creates Wei Ran to accompany him every day, because he can't believe that his beloved will never wake up again. Zicheng, who was originally cold and elegant, is the woman in the southern border, and even the small base outside is the one he wants to marry the most. Now, the madness is even more like a spring, and he wants to appear in front of him. Otherwise, Gu Ming and the others stop him. He was annoyed by Zicheng. Zhang Ninfeng raised the baffle to block the inexplicably greasy air behind him. Oh, even if Xiao Ran is in a coma for a while now, it can't stop these two people from giving candy. Gu Mingyun glanced at him and said, "Isn't the candy I usually give you enough?" Zhang Nanfeng leaned his elbows on the car at the central control station, with his chin resting on his hands. He looked at Gu Ming, who was driving, with a lazy voice. "Oh, what kind of candy did you give me? Why didn't I know?" Gu Ming looked straight ahead with no expression on his face. Without turning his head, he stretched out his big hand to the back of Zhang Ninfeng's neck, where several deep tooth marks interlaced and superimposed. He rubbed his rough fingers holding the gun. "For many years, it seems that I didn't stay enough last night. And I have to continue tonight." Jiang Nan swung his hand away. With a thin blush on his face, he laughed and cursed, "Get out. Go to sleep in your own room tonight. I won't entertain you. I lock the door." Guming glanced at him. "It's locked." "I opened it myself. If I couldn't open it, I dismantled the door." The lock of the weapons laboratory was trivial to him, let alone a lock on the door of an ordinary room. Jiang Nanfeng laughed at him seriously and shamelessly. Suddenly he became curious about Guming's thoughts. He poked the abdominal muscles in Guming's waist and asked, "Why did you hide so deeply before? Are you stupid? Why don't you learn from Brother Cheng to force love on me for Xiao Ran?" Guming was indifferent, said no need. Jiang Nanfeng wondered, when did the gloomy and cold Guming become so generous? He said, "When you go abroad all the year round, you are not afraid of me getting a girlfriend or even getting married? I was also a schoolgirl, okay? Many girls chase me. But it's strange to say, every time I want to start with a girl, the other party will disappear inexplicably." "I know," Guming said quietly, "because I did it all, and I gave them a sum of money through friendly negotiation." Jiang Nanfeng hadn't turned the corner yet, and stared blankly at him. Guming continued, "Ever since I realized my thoughts on you, I never planned to have anyone else around you. Every time there is such a sign around you, I just..." He turned his eyes and looked at Jiang Nanfeng's face seemed calm, and his tone was full of strength. "Shut up, I have already said that Guming is not a fuel-efficient lamp, and he will not have the kind of greatness that if he is safe, I will be sunny. Mind." He wasn't worried because the foolish Jiang Nanfeng couldn't escape his five fingers mountain at all. Jiang Nanfeng swallowed and said with difficulty, "No. When we were studying together, we could always say that we could monitor my every move, but then you went abroad. How did you know about me?" "Chen Wei told me information." "He has always known about you." "Yes, I took the initiative to tell him." "What about other people?" "Brother Cheng was the first to know, so part of the reason why he asked me to go abroad, it's because I'm afraid that I won't be able to distinguish my heart, and I'm also worried that I will hurt you. Su Yi and Yan Yan should have seen it before you found out." Jiang Nanfeng was dumbfounded. That is to say, he was the last one to know. He gritted his teeth and scolded, "You bastard. If there was no incident in the desert before, you would have been planning to cut my peach blossoms like this all the time." Guming nodded and said very seriously, "Yes." Jiang Nanfeng rubbed his head with a headache. The co-author Cheng Shuxian indirectly became their matchmaker. Chapter 152. The Tented. Wild cotton field glowing with silver light is actually connected to the Loy scenic area, but it is only in the fringe area. It is true that there is an entire wild cotton field in the mountains, and it looks like you are in a picture as white as snow. Jiang Nanfeng estimated the wild cotton and said, "Here should be able to provide winter clothes for the large counties in the southern border. I'll contact Chen Wei and ask them to arrange good people to come and pick them." Gu Ming returned to the RV and took out the cotton. The satellite phone calls Chen Wei. 4 hours later. In the morning, Su Yi quickly gathered 500 people familiar with agriculture and 500 escorts and drove to the wild cotton field first. Of course, these people are far from enough to pick wild cotton in the entire mountain area. Su Yi reported to Zicheng, "This is the first batch. Chen Wei is still calling, and the second batch will probably come tomorrow. The guards will follow and set up camps and station guards." Zicheng nodded. Afterwards, the guards were in full swing to choose a site to build a camp, picking people who were familiar with agriculture, and started the task after a short rest. Originally, when collecting materials, the cars with related automatic harvesters were also collected at the same time, but they were all stored in Wei Ran's space. Now, although Wei Ran is conscious, she can't use the space, so she can only collect it manually temporarily. Although they have an RV this time, they want to sleep in a tent this time. After Su Yi and Gu Ming finished Zicheng's tent, Zicheng put Wei Ran into the tent that had been covered with soft blankets and fell asleep comfortably. Slender and clean fingers caressed her picturesque eyebrows and eyes and murmured softly, Ran, stay here for a while and I will be back soon." Then carefully tucked her bedding and then exited the tent. But the moment Zicheng turned around, her long eyelashes trembled a few times. Because Zicheng will not be returning to the base for the time being, Yuming specially set up a large tent to make a temporary conference room, and it is not a problem to accommodate more than a dozen people. Zicheng told Su Yiyai after explaining some things, tell Chen Wei that I won't go back for 2 days. If there is anything in the base, I will report. Su Yi responded and said, okay brother Cheng, then I'll go back to deal with other matters first. Zicheng nodded. Su Yi then disappeared into the tent. This night there was some movement outside. The guards on duty at night yelled through the silent night, "Who? Don't move, I'll shoot if you move again." Why did Su Yi send the guards over? Because Zicheng sensed that there was a person nearby. Newly established a small base, the cotton picking period will take some time, and Zicheng and the others cannot be there all the time, so they must build a camp to garrison. After Zicheng took office, he clearly announced that private bases are not allowed in the southern boundary, and can only be established by them. Once there is an expropriation by force, the person in charge of the base will be expelled from the southern boundary. But there will still be challenges that people will not know how to live or die. When someone invaded, Zicheng and Gu Mingjang and Feng, 3 discussed the base in the tent, and then developed. They didn't interrupt until the guards shouted, and they were still calm and calm. As for a small tent not far from the deliberation tent, the outer layer was already covered with a silver protective cover long before the invaders came. Soon gunshots rang out, accompanied by supernatural attacks. After about 10 minutes, the captain of the escort team came in and stood up and reported respectfully, Mr. Cheng, all the intruders have been captured alive, a total of 20 people. They wanted to poison our food, but we discovered it in advance. Zicheng didn't look up, just looked at the information in his hand and said coldly, tie them up and hang them on the tree. The captain of the guard responded, yes, Mr. Cheng, then retreated to carry out the order. There was a burst of shouting and cursing outside, but it quickly quieted down. Jiang Nanfang laughed happily. This base is a bit resourceful, so if you know it's too hard, you'll come here. Yuming threw the pen in his hand on the table and said there are always small bases popping up during this period of time. I have been conscripted several times, but this is not the way to go. I am afraid that the southern border will soon be accused of cruelty and inhumanity. Zicheng made this decision to ensure the integrity and independence of the southern borderland. But some small bases want to rely on the big tree of the southern border base to enjoy the shade, and also want to despicably divide up the southern borderland for independence. Zicheng will not allow it no matter what. But now that the signal outside is broken, the information is not equal, and it is sometimes difficult to send out the announcements. Some people took this piece to leak copper, and spread rumors that the dominance of the southern border does not allow other bases to exist. Zicheng was silent. Tap the table with your fingers. Suddenly he flashed a person. The person who touched porcelain Ran in the market last time is still closed. Yuming didn't understand why Zicheng mentioned him, but he replied immediately. Chen Wei went to interrogate once. It used to be Shorin, who specializes in network information, only came to the southern border 2 days ago. Network information. Yuming instantly understood why Zicheng asked him. Zicheng slowly opened his eyelids. His eyes were slightly cold. Tell Chen Wei to let him go and talk to that person, but for the rest of his life he should do one thing well and let that person choose. The next day, Zicheng was leaving behind the small tent. The protective cover immediately fell down like yesterday. After Zicheng walked away, the grass in the distance of the small tent trembled a few times and 5 people sprang out. Walked towards the small tent glowing with silver light. A girl who appeared to be 17 or 18 years old lowered her voice and asked the 18 or 19-year-old man at the front, "Ag, didn't you save the chiefs? What are you doing here?" Liao Jilun also lowered his voice and said, "You didn't notice, is this tent the most special in the entire camp? There must be their most precious things in it. If we steal it and negotiate with them, we may not only save the leader but also get cotton to keep out the cold." The rest of them hearing this, I also felt that it made sense, and they all agreed to do it. but it's not easy to find out when they want to get closer to implementation. Not to mention trying to get in, even getting a little closer would make people feel uncomfortable. Liao Jilun, this shield is not right, we are 5 meters away from it, but I can still feel its strong aura suppressing us. The girl was a little scared and took Liao Jilun's arm to dissuade its dangerous, don't go of. Course Liao Jilun also sensed that the silver ring was unusual, but he was not willing to back down and shook off her hand. I won't back down. My elder brother is still tied there, I must rescue him. It's just a cover, what are you afraid of? After speaking, he moved towards the tent and pinched his hands. A mighty and invisible attack force successfully landed on the protective cover glowing with silver light. Chapter 153. Am I still dreaming? But Liao Jilun was full of disbelief. How is this possible? What's going on? The few people behind him were also shocked and speechless. Because the so-called silver ring in their eyes was not damaged at all, but used his power for their own use. At this time, a playful voice came. Oh, Brother Cheng, this kid is just like you. He is also a mind controller, but it looks like he didn't study hard. This trick is not powerful enough. Jiang Nanfeng's voice brought Liao Jilun and the others back to their senses. He yelled angrily, you. But Jiang Nanfeng cut him off before he finished speaking. How did you know you were here? Jiang Nanfeng laughed a few times. I knew it from the beginning. I've been watching from the side. These words made Liao Jilun's face change suddenly. How is it possible? You have the ability to control mind consciousness and you still have a protective shield. I know, so what? Jiang Nanfeng spread his hands and pointed at Liao Jilun playfully. Boy, fortunately you are not reckless. Rush forward and touch it. This protective shield is different from your protective shield. It will wipe you all to ashes. Liao Jilun's expressions changed. I have never heard that the protective shield that is only defensive can also be transformed into an attack form. Could it be? It is only the god-level leader in the southern base in the legend that makes this impossible possible. Immediately, Liao Jilun thought of being able to protect it with such a strong protective cover, and he became more and more curious about the things in the tent, and he felt that he wanted to get it. He also has a support ability called Dungeon. Liao Jilun lowered his voice and said to the people behind him, we can't just get caught like this. You wait for my order to hold that person. I will go from the ground to the bottom of that tent, so that we can have a bargaining chip. As far as I know, the protective cover cannot protect the underground. Although those people were afraid, they were even more afraid of being captured, so they all focused on Liao Jilun and agreed with his countermeasures. Although a few people couldn't see how many levels the man opposite him had, they felt that it was barely enough for the 3 cobblers to outshine Zhuge Liang. Liao Jilun gave an order, now attack. Then he fled underground. The few remaining people immediately shouted, come on. Jiang Nanfeng. The children nowadays are like this ... Interesting. Liao Jilun guessed that his head had reached the edge of the bottom of the tent and slowly poked his head out. Also secretly happy. Sure enough, the protective cover cannot protect the ground. He wanted to drill out of the ground, but it seemed to be blocked by something. He thought it was a stone. Then I went to the side for a short distance and wanted to get out, but was blocked again. Then he escaped like this and was blocked again. The cycle continues. He wondered, why are there so many stones here? After being tossed and tossed, he managed to get out with great difficulty, and what caught his eye was a brown tent. It appears to be the edge of the tent inside. When he slowly got up, when he turned around and came back, he saw a bed. There seemed to be a person lying on the bed, and a man was sitting beside him, looking at him calmly and coldly. Liao Jilun panicked and pinched his fingers to call out the attack skill. Seeing that the skill was about to land on the man, it disappeared suddenly. They called out attacks in succession, all the same. And the man didn't even move. I feel bad. He immediately ran away, but as a result, his whole body was buried, and only his head was exposed on the ground. He struggled violently, but could do nothing. He shouted, "Is it your fault? I tell you to let me go, or I will peel your skin after I come out." Oh, Zicheng raised his eyes slightly, with a hint of meaning. "I'm very interested." Then Liao Jilun was picked up from the soil like a carrot. His face and body covered in mud made him even more embarrassed. He said stubborn words, but his body was very honest. As soon as his feet hit the ground, he wanted to run away instantly. It is to reproduce the scene of being planted with radishes just now. Zicheng gently stroked Wei Ran's hand and glanced at him coldly. "What? Are you thinking about running away?" Liao Jilun was young and vigorous, because he had the ability to control the mind consciousness. That's why the base dared to run away. Build a small base. In his base he responded all the time. Where had he ever been humiliated like this? He immediately cursed, "You are domineering. In the southern border you don't give us room to survive. Why don't you build a base for us? Why should you belong to you? Oh, what is dead without a whole body? What to say?" Suddenly he was stopped. "You see you on Arizona alayu. Go Israel mandayo Kurgandashun Wishers Dario Mandum." A cold and hoarse voice sounded from the tent. "Who allows you to scold my brother?" Mew. Zicheng originally turned his back to Wei Ran when he suddenly heard Wei Ran's voice that he hadn't seen for a long time. He turned sharply. See the unique clarity in Wei Ran's eyes. What he was looking forward to every day and night finally came. His rough fingers trembled slightly and caressed her fair and delicate face. He couldn't believe it. Because there are too many nights where this scene has been in dreams, but after waking up, it is still Wei Ran who is still sleeping peacefully. His cold and handsome face was completely replaced by tenderness. His eyes were pleasantly surprised, and he murmured softly, Ran, am I still in a dream?" And said softly, "No, brother, I'm back." Zicheng felt the temperature that had never been in the dream, and then believed in this moment. He laughed loudly, bent down and lowered his head to her forehead. Liao Jilun was momentarily stunned by the sudden warmth of the two people in front of him. Guoming and Jiang Nanfeng, who were guarding outside the tent, heard Zicheng's laughter before, and thought that something had happened, so they opened the curtain and went in directly. I saw Zicheng bent over, and a white and soft hand rested on his waist and shoulders. Guoming and Jiang Nanfeng exclaimed, "Xiao Ran." Liao Jilun saw that the two people who were safe and sound came in, so he knew that his group was probably captured as well, so he started to ask and again. But at this time there is no one to talk to him. Jiang Nanfeng took out the satellite phone and said happily, "I told Chen Wei and Su Yi that Xiao Ran finally woke up. Let Chen Wei and the others come over and celebrate." Even Guoming, who had always been paralyzed, had a look of joy on his face. After Chen Wei, Su Yi and Yan received the message, Su Yi immediately brought them here. So Jilun Liao saw someone coming in again, and struggled again. But Chen Wei and the others went straight to Wei Ran in their eyes and hearts, and they couldn't see other people at all, and they didn't think that there were unrelated people buried in the tent. It was already 3 hours later when Liao Jilun was found. He looked like he was powerless to be slaughtered with his head raised. Chen Wei was the first to discover Liao Jilun. He looked at Jiang Nanfeng suspiciously and said, "Nanfeng, why is this tent planted with radishes?" Chapter 154. Brother, it's great to have you. Jiang Nanfeng laughed a few times and pointed to Liao Jilun, who was already loveless on the ground. Wasn't he planted on the ground by Brother Cheng? Brother's protective shield. Su Yi also surrounded him. Then you can't be played around by Brother Cheng. Chen Wei continued, "It looks like it's probably enough. I remember we played that kind of whack-a-mole hole game before." No, Jiang Nanfeng laughed so hard when he thought of the scene at that time, he had to hold Guoming's shoulders to stand still. Reluctantly said intermittently, he is like ... ha ha ha, that gopher. He was pressed by Brother Cheng just like that ... ha 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 ... pressed back. Even Chen Wei and the others could recall that funny scene even if they were not at the scene. A circle formed around Liao Jilin. Everyone laughed so hard that they turned their backs. Although Mu Zicheng is usually indifferent, his occasional bad taste is more than enough. If Mu Zicheng hadn't removed the protective cover when he came over from the ground, Liao Jilin would have turned into a handful of dust in the ground. And Liao Jilin was unable to scold anymore, so he could only look at these people laughing non-stop. In the evening, when he was finally able to pull out of the ground again, Su Yi dragged him out of the tent, and a square icicle criss-crossed ice prison appeared not far outside, and there were several small icicles inside. Partner. The top of the ice prison is empty. There is nothing. If it is easy to escape, just climb up. But these people are just sitting in the middle, far away from the icicle. Su Yi threw Liao Jilin from above into the ice cell with a light flick. Seeing his distressed appearance, he remembered the whack-a-mole Jiang Nianfang said, and couldn't help laughing again. Little friend, be good in there, don't worry about it. Think about escaping again, or you will suffer again. Then he got up and left. Liao Jilin glared at Su Yuan, Although Mu Zicheng let him out, Wei Ran didn't let him go, and she didn't have a deadline for the silence technique. Seeing that he couldn't speak, the girl thought that his tongue had been cut, so she hurried forward to check him, trying to treat him, but when she came to him, she thought he was fine. Gee, what's the matter with you? But he just shook his head to show that he was fine. Not to mention that Liao Jilin can't speak now. Even if he could, he would never tell his partner what happened in the tent. He looked at the top without any shelter and pointed at it with his finger, asking why his partner didn't run from here. Hey, Ag was thrown down from there just now. Why is it all right? Ag, you can't get up here, this ice prison. The girl turned around and said nothing when she heard the sound of falling to the ground behind her. Ending words there is electricity. Ag, but with the god-level herbs in the secret realm, it only took about 10 minutes to get back to normal. The wind in the valley was relatively strong, so Mu Zicheng put on a thicker coat for her. Wei Ran walked out of the tent. The light was dazzling, and the wind outside was blowing on her face. Feeling a bit like early winter, she stretched out her hand to block some light, and looked at the warm sun outside through her fingers. It was only autumn before I fell asleep, and now it's early winter. Mu Zicheng hugged her into his arms behind her, bowing her head and whispering in her ear, it's good that you woke up. Wei Ran put her soft little hand on his forearm. I heard every word you said after I fell asleep. I can't respond to you. She pursed her mouth. I kept calling you inside, but you didn't hear me. Mu Zicheng smiled lightly. He pinched her cheek. Whose fault? Wei Ran stuck out her pink tongue, then raised her face and changed the topic with a smile. I'm hungry. Mu Zicheng could take her what to do. I can only follow my little ancestor. There was no Buddha jumping over the wall tonight, but Chen Wei made the grilled fish and roast turkey that they used to eat when they were wandering outside. Both the fish and the turkey were taken out of the space by Wei Ran this afternoon, and they are fresh. A lot was taken out and distributed to the cotton-picking workers and the defense team. When Wei Ran took Mu Zicheng to Chen Wei's side, he heard them bickering again from a distance. She felt that this seemed to be back to the wandering days at that time. Surrounded by lonely mountains and wild ridges, there's an RV next to it, and there is a fire in the middle, with a steaming cauldron on it. It seems that I just slept all day yesterday, and we haven't reached the southern border base yet. She turned and looked back with a smile. Brother, with you, being with them is the happiest day. Then she happily ran to Yan Yang and the others. And wherever Mu Zicheng looked, she was everywhere. Because the weather turned cold, Chen Wei not only made grilled fish but also sliced the fish into thin slices. He wanted to make a pickled fish to eat around the pot. When he was eating fish, Jiang Nianfang always surrounded him and chattered endlessly. Why is this fish fillet so thick? Chen Wei, do you know how to do knife skills? It won't work. It's broken. Is it broken? Finally, a good piece. Chen Wei finally unbearable, he threw the knife away, and looked at Jiang Yanfeng expressionlessly. I know that Gu Ming is playing with a knife, and he called him the second, and no one dares to be the first. Jiang Nanfeng smiled and waved his hands. Where is he? How can he be so powerful? Chen Wei continued, you always talk non-stop at my place. Do you want Gu Ming to do it? And then you just kissed me with him, and it just happened to make you want to show your good wife and mother, isn't it? Jiang Nanfeng immediately turned his face ruthlessly. Chen Wei, whoever you say is going to be a good wife and mother. Whoever should do it. Your uncle. If Chen Wei has the guts, don't run away. I'm a fool if I don't run away. Su Yi raised his forehead. It's here again. If you don't fish for 3 days, you'll have to go to the house to uncover tiles. He looked at a half-filleted fish and shouted. Gu Ming, clean up the mess for your wife Gu Ming, who was sorting things on the other side, immediately pleased him when he heard the word wife. Holding that knife in his hand seemed to bring joy, and he just took care of that big salmon in a while. Yan Yang brought a few foldable stools from the RV, and she was carrying a bag of melon seeds. When she saw Wei Ran running towards this side, she waved to Xiao Ran, come here, I'm cracking melon seeds. Wei Ran sat down on one of them. Stool, grabbed a handful of melon seeds in his hand, and watched with relish Jiang Yanfeng and Chen Wei's back and forth attacks. A burst of icy light flashed. I just fell asleep for a while. Nanfeng's ability was mentioned again. Yes, Nanfeng did mention it. Another burst of fire flashed. Hey, Chen Wei is also on par. They often practice against each other. Can they be far behind? Chapter 155. I want to marry you. Many years in the morning. When Zicheng woke up, Wei Ran was still sleeping in his arms. He was afraid that it would be another nightmare, so he called Wei Ran softly. Ran. Wei Ran squinted her sleepy eyes, burying into his arms again. The hoarse, lazy voice was a little grievanced. Brother, good morning. My throat hurts. Last night was too crazy, her waist and legs were sore, and now she just wanted to rely on Zicheng's arms. Hearing her unique little lazy voice, Zicheng let go of his body. Last night he was also crazy and persistent to make her scream, and she let him. So my throat is so sore that I can't speak now. Zicheng's slender and rough fingers slid across her delicate and fair neck, and the most beautiful picture of her flashed in his eyes. He lowered his head slightly, his thin lips lingering in her ear. Last night, Ran was really beautiful. It would be great if Ran could be so obedient every time, especially that pose. Wei Ran's body flushed slightly again, and she reached out to cover his thin lips. Coquettishly, don't say it, don't say it, don't say it, I've completely forgotten those embarrassing people. She finally understood how terrifying Zicheng was when he was saving money. He is usually powerful enough, but last night he was even stronger than before, very. Zicheng licked her palm with the tip of his tongue, and murmured softly, okay, don't talk, let's use actions to recall memories. The quilt was pulled to cover the two of them, and the tiredness started again. Zicheng was standing by the bed and Wei Ran was carefully arranging his clothes in front of him. Brother, this coat of yours is a little stained here. Change it to this one, which has a better color matching with your clothes today. Zicheng's eyes lighted softly, and he hummed softly, and then a dark blue coat appeared in Wei Ran's hand and waited for him to put it on, muttering, brother, you don't take care of yourself too much. Now that the weather is getting colder, you don't even wear a thicker coat. There are quite a few of them at home. Look, I can't do without me. Zicheng lowered his eyes, his whole body was soft. After Wei Ran tidied it up for him, turned around and wanted to get something else. He only heard Zicheng's low and solemn words behind him. Wei Ran, marry me. Wei Ran suddenly seemed to have been immobilized by herself, and the time around her stopped, her mind went blank and she couldn't turn around at all. During the days of wandering, Zicheng once said that he would give her a meaningful home, but he didn't mention it again until he came to settle in the south. Suddenly I felt sour in my heart. Although everyone in the entire southern border base knew that Zicheng didn't have 3 wives and 4 concubines like other base leaders, his only partner was Ran丨. Everyone in the southern border knew who she was. Zicheng blatantly doted on her, but everyone always only called her Miss Wei, just because Zicheng never mentioned marrying her. Zicheng didn't say anything, but she also knew that some people privately sent him women in order to win him over, although she knew that these women couldn't even come within a few tens of meters of him. But she still gets angry. He clearly knew how strongly she wanted to marry him. Zicheng slowly walked up to Ran丨. She bowed her head and he couldn't see her emotions. He continued, I used to think that my Ran丨deserves the best in this world, so I just want to give you better and more things. I want to give you a romantic sea of flowers at the wedding ceremony. You also like the sea. I searched for a long time in the southern border base before I found an island. The southern border sea is also a place suitable for planting a large number of flowers. Ran's eyes turned red. Looked at him with eyes full of eyes. I thought you didn't plan to marry me in this life. I don't need any flowers. I don't need any islands, as long as you, Mozi, marry me. Zicheng held his hand. She caressed her cheeks carefully. Her eyes were full of deep love, and she lowered her head against her forehead and whispered softly. I know you've been waiting for me to speak, but what you don't know is that you store the wedding dress I personally designed for you in your space and... He picked up her catkin and stroked her ring finger. Still, there is our ring. I have been waiting for too many years to marry you. Zicheng's words deeply shocked Ran. She didn't know that Zicheng's promise was hidden in the space. Ran murmured, I don't know about this. Zicheng kissed the back of her right hand and said, in the month since you fell asleep, thinking of what is best for you has become the only thing you want to do. Regret, if you don't wake up, then we will miss the most sacred thing in life. So, I don't want to waste any more time. Zicheng asked again, gently, solemnly and calmly. Ran, will you marry me? Ran couldn't help but nod her head. The choked throat could only contain 2 words. Yes. She threw herself into Zicheng's warm arms, and Zicheng hugged her tightly. Lost and found. Only these 2 understand pain and ecstasy. The best thing for a loved one is to tell your heart right now. Don't wait for tomorrow. A large circle of people sitting in a conference tent split in 2. On one side are Guming and Jiang Nanfeng. Su Yi took Chen Wei and Yan back to the base after dinner last night. There are still many things in Yandong and Spring waiting for them to deal with. One side is the person who captured the small base last night and Liao Jilun and his friends. They have been sitting here since 7 o'clock in the morning and it is almost 11 o'clock now. The face of the person sitting in the middle was ashen. But Guming and Jiang Nanfeng didn't wait here all the time. They went out to see if the workers outside had any use for the automatic harvester that Ran took out last night. More than a dozen harvesters started in unison, obviously many times faster than manual labor. This morning a large batch has been collected. Because Shengguanling's front line is in a hurry, so Su Yi teleported over to take this batch and go back to make a batch of winter clothes. This meeting was not long after Guming and Jiang Nanfeng sat down. The people at the small base also wanted to leave, but they couldn't beat the defense team at the door. Liao Jilun wanted to speak out, but if Ran didn't lift the ban for a day, he couldn't speak or eat. The person sitting in the middle couldn't bear it any longer and asked angrily, how long will we have to wait? Jiang Jiangenfun took out a handful of melon seeds from his pocket and just nodded like that without responding. Guming, who doesn't like to talk, is holding a tablet in silence at this moment and doesn't know what he is ordering. The people next to the small base were annoyed, but they didn't dare to speak harshly. Excuse me, this little brother who cracked melon seeds brought us here early in the morning and didn't say anything. Let me know even if it's a negotiation. Jiang Nanfeng replied suddenly, oh, so you called me. You didn't say it clearly. How do I know who you are asking? Right. If we can talk, well, let's start first. Please come here. Our leader, I want to see you, but as for the negotiation you mentioned, I just think too much. The person sitting in the middle is Liao Jilan's elder brother, Liao Tao. He didn't know why. What do you mean? Chapter 156. Give it a good time, just the literal meaning. Mu Zicheng suddenly appeared in the meeting tent. When Liao Jilan saw Mu Zicheng appear, his arrogance immediately subsided a lot. He still remembers how he was crushed in the tent. Liao Tao knew his younger brother very well, but at this moment he didn't even hum, so something must have happened. It was only after they got together this morning that they learned that Liao Jilan had also been captured, and they couldn't even speak. Trap them here now. The more he thought about it, the more ugly his face became. After Mu Zicheng walked into the tent, he turned around and reached out to lift the curtain to let Wei Ran in. He then took the main seat, with Wei Ran on his right. When Liao Tao saw that he was in the main position, he knew that the person in front of him was the leader of the southern border, but it was different from the outside rumors. It is rumored that the leader of the southern border base is the only god-level supernatural being, and he is also in his 40s or 50s. But now it seems that he is less than 30 years old. No matter how angry he was, he didn't dare to say a word at this time, because the rumored Mu Zicheng was still moody, brutal and warlike, and used treacherous tricks to rise to power, and defeated the former leader Sheng Wanling, and then expelled him from the country. This is the root cause of Liao Tao's reluctance to belong to the southern border. After Mu Zicheng sat down, he didn't immediately continue the topic just now but attracted the guards to whisper a few words, and the guards went out. Liao Tao, who was left on the sidelines, couldn't help it, and asked, "I want to ask why the south border base imprisoned us." At this time, the guards came back again, carrying a square incubator in their hands. After taking over, Zizi waved his hand casually to let the guards retreat. After he opened the lid of the box, the fragrance overflowed and filled the entire conference tent. Under the gaze of everyone, he calmly took out a plate of chicken wings and toothpick beef that were roasted until golden and still hot. Then Mu Zicheng pushed the plate of chicken wings in front of Wei Ran and said, "When Su Yi came over this morning, Chen Weirang brought them here. You can eat them while they are hot." Of course Wei Ran had eaten them before coming here, but he only ate it's just plain porridge. So she nodded without pretense. Liao Tao and his party. Isn't this a conference tent for discussing matters? The most terrible thing is that this is completely torture for Liao Tao and the others who have been hungry for 2 days. They can't look away from the grilled wings dripping with oil in Wei Ran's hands. Jiang Nanfeng waved his hand opposite Liao Jilan, and the others with a smile, "Hey, don't watch it, you won't be able to eat it if you die." Liao Tao and Liao Jilan felt that the southern border was embarrassing them, knowing that the small base was in short supply of supplies, let alone meat. Even rice is short for 3 or 2 days. Liao Jilan couldn't speak, his face flushed, and he wanted to go forward on impulse, but was blocked by Liao Tao. Liao Tao closed his eyes and wanted to take a few deep breaths, but when he inhaled it was full of the smell of barbecue. He wanted to scold his mother. He gritted his teeth and asked again, "Why did the southern border base imprison us? Bian teased, "Didn't you guys come here first?" Liao Tao was speechless for a moment. "That's true. But you can't admit it." So he bit the bullet and raised his voice and said, "Can't we come to this place? Where does it say that the south border base is exclusive to it?" Mu Zicheng straightened his cuffs slowly, put his forearms on the armrest of the chair, leaned his body slightly towards Liao Tao, and stared at him coldly. "Every place within the southern boundary line belongs to the southern boundary base." Liao Tao couldn't bear it anymore, jumped up against the table, and shouted angrily, "Why?" Answer. "Why are you building a base here?" Liao Tao bit his tongue again. Of course, the reason for coming to the southern border is that aliens don't like to come to the southern border because of the geographical reasons. People can fully recuperate. What's more, it couldn't be a better place to have Mu Zicheng, a god-level boss, sit in town. Mu Zicheng didn't let Liao Tao off because he didn't speak. The cold and cruel words followed one after another. "When did you base yourself?" Why did you come here knowing that there were people from the southern base stationed here? Why are you sitting here? Every question was sharp and painful. Liao Tao couldn't answer at all. Every word and every sentence pointed to the nail on the nail of his magnificent excuse. At this moment he pursed his lips tightly and didn't say a word. One of the people next to him didn't understand what he meant, so he replied directly, "What's the problem? So what if we only established it half a month ago?" What? Wei Ran wiped it slowly after eating enough with her lips flapping. She turned her head slightly and looked over there. The southern border was besieged by nearly 10,000 aliens a month ago. You should know that the southern border will not be completely safe, and sometimes even more dangerous. She stared sharply at everyone over there. Nearly 10,000 aliens. But why did you still come here half a month ago? The man blurted out, "Hasn't that been finally repelled by the southern border base?" Wei Ran looked at the man coldly. "People don't speak." The man knew what he said and quickly covered his mouth with his hands. They came here for the strength of the southern border. Wei Ran snorted coldly. You people enjoy the peace of mind of others who are desperately trying to keep the peace but want to share a piece of the pie. You are also justified in turning your back on the customer and saying, "What should we do?" That game is to defend, and you know what the price is. She suddenly sternly, solemnly Yidao said, "Drinking tea and chatting with you like this now. Do you know where the cotton is going to be supplied? It's going to be made into winter clothes and sent to the front line to exterminate aliens." Not only did Liao Tao's face suddenly become dumb, but also even Liao Jilun was ashamed. They had never seen that battle before, but there were all kinds of versions from what they heard. The version said that many aliens were besieging at the same time, but they never knew that it was nearly 10,000. However, it is well known that the front line of the southern border has been going out to risk their lives. At this time, the satellite phone at Gu Ming's hand rang. Gu Ming picked it up and then handed the satellite phone to Zicheng brother Cheng. General Shengguan's call. Liao Jilun opened his eyes wide. Shengguan? Shengguan Ling? Didn't it mean that Zicheng had expelled him from the south? And Zicheng over there hung up the phone after a few responses and turned to Gu Ming and said, "You contact Su Yi and ask him to transport Professor Li's newly developed weapon to Shengguan Ling and let Shengguan Ling try the effect." Gu Ming nodded in response and went out with the satellite phone. Zicheng waved to Jiang and Feng again, asking him to come over and whisper a few words. Liao Tao was completely dumbfounded now, and said in his heart after thinking about it, "Isn't Colonel Shengguan driven away by him in the rumors?" Wei Ran frowned slightly. She hated any slander against Zicheng. She said coldly, "Shengguan Ling just doesn't want to be a leader." After saying this, the meeting tent fell silent. Liao Tao slammed the table to his feet, his face flushed. "Just have fun. What are you going to do with us?" Zicheng looked at Liao Tao indifferently, and only said one irrelevant sentence, "You have a person who can make white gauze. I want this person." Liao Tao thought he heard it wrong. What? Chapter 157. Stubbornness has seen. That after Zicheng brought Wei Ran back to the base, he asked Chen Wei to handle the wedding. Although the part of the Flower Sea in the plan is omitted, the island is still the location for the wedding. The time is in the spring. It was already 3 days later when Liao Jilun arrived at the southern border. Zhang Manman, the girl who followed him in the Mianyua mountain area before, has never changed her O-shaped mouth since she came in. This is the southern border base. The area here is so huge, and it can still have such a thriving and prosperous state in the last days. Now they passed by the crowded market and she was surprised again. You look. This market is so lively, it doesn't seem to be in the last days at all. People here live and work in peace and contentment, and there are even massage parlors. That day Zicheng said that he sent the people who made the white gauze to the southern border. After the Yi Highland at the base, he took the people in the meeting tent and disappeared out of thin air. He was shocked. Zicheng could teleport. Isn't he a conscious mind control superhuman? How can you still have rare abilities? Although Zicheng is so godlike, he still doesn't believe Zicheng because he listens to rumors and has preconceived ideas. So before Liao Jilun came to the southern border, he told his little friends that the people here must be miserable under Zicheng's brutal oppression, living a difficult life, and so on. But I never thought about this scenario. At this time it was slapping him in the face. The market is the best expression of the current situation of a base, because all kinds of people gather there. Because they had just arrived at the southern border base and did not know about Yehi Island, Zhang Manan asked a young man passing by, "Hi, I would like to ask how to get to Yehi Island." The young man immediately became vigilant and looked back and forth at Zhang Man and the others. "What are you doing at Yehi Island? You can't go there, it's very dangerous." Liao Jilun suddenly became excited. "My little brother, how do you say that? The people there, isn't it cruel and bloodthirsty?" The young man became angry when he heard this and shouted, "Who are you? You are not from our southern border. Where did you come from? And you actually slandered our President Cheng." At this time, when the people around heard it, they also surrounded him, looking like they were going to fight. Liao Jilun yelled at the young man, "Hey, didn't you say that the people in Yehi Island are dangerous?" The young man said angrily, "I'm telling you that Yehi Island is dangerous, not people. Very." The people around also echoed, "That's right. Who doesn't know the specialness of Yehi Island? They shouldn't be from Zhejiang base. Right? No, we're not ... We're here to find you, Mr. Chung." But when she opened her mouth, she couldn't resist talking all over the place. Zicheng was discussing with Chen Wei on the 15th floor of the office building. He lowered his eyes and flipped through the information Chen Wei handed over. "How was that person?" "It was the person who touched Wei Ran before." Chen Wei replied, "I have arranged for people to memorize the manuscripts he wrote for the Navy, and let those people go to various private bases that have not belonged to them a few days ago to exaggerate," Yu Ming said. "Actually, these small bases are not willing to. It belongs to the southern border because of the slanderous rumors that spread before. Where did these rumors come out to hinder us? There is no one else except Chang Shuxian." Zhang Yanfeng continued, "Although the battle a month ago made the southern territory even more famous, the number of people who came to the southern territory during this period was a bit strange, and most of them were privately built by themselves. There are a small number of people. The unequal information leads to the majority of people who listen to rumors, but some commit crimes knowingly. This is the Zhejiang base deliberately luring these people to the southern border and spreading rumors, in order to distract Zicheng's attention. There are endless private bases. Even if Zicheng can maintain the integrity of the southern border in the end, long-term violent suppression will lead to adverse consequences." Although Zicheng didn't care about these things, but in order to cause unnecessary troubles in the future, he wanted to be pressed to death in the cradle before these signs appeared. Chen Wei agreed with Yu Ming and Zhang Nanfeng's words and said, "So when I let them enter the small private base and spread the information, in addition to the fact that the Zhejiang base would invade at any time, and it was revealed that he would manipulate aliens, those who catch supernatural powers will become aliens." Zicheng nodded and said in a low and cold voice, "From now on, let the people below no longer need to suppress the private base, and the information that spreads out should be effective in 3 or 4 days. Chen Wei, pay attention to these people, not staying in one base all the time. Pay attention to branching out, and don't let people mix mature faces." Chen Wei replied, "Okay." Yu Ming asked, "Then we follow those submissions?" "Yes and no." Zicheng casually placed his arm in front of the table, rubbing his thumb and index finger carefully. "Calmly and slowly, tomorrow it will be promulgated to the public that if there is no base within the time limit of 15 days from tomorrow, then not only the leader of the privately established base but also the relevant personnel will be killed, and all the people in the base will be expelled from the southern border into the permanent blacklist. They don't take it seriously when I announce it now, but what I want is their disdain at this moment." His eyes were covered with frost, and his mouth was full of remnants. "As the information that spreads slowly ferments, the fear will be doubled day after day. I want them to worry day and night, thinking that the road ahead will be blocked, and the road behind will be chased and killed." Zicheng has never been a good person, and his methods have always been ruthless and decisive. Either he doesn't play, or if he wants to play, he has to count people to the end, and play as hard as he can. Then he pointed to the paper on the table. Huang Tiansheng's manuscript is well written. It seems that he was quite good at being a sailor before. Let him out and arrange a position for him. In the future, such things will continue to happen. Chen Wei nodded in response. Liao Jilan and Zhang Manman were rescued in embarrassment by the patrol team who heard the movement. After getting in touch with Su Yi, I asked the patrol to send the two of them to Yehi Island. The patrol sent Liao Jilan to the border of Yehi Island. Liao Jilan and Zhang Man saw that there were supplies piled up next to the two large relief stone pillars. Liao Jilan asked a little brother next to him, "What's going on? Is the leader of your family asking people to provide supplies?" The boss got angry again and shouted angrily, "Of course not. Our family Chengzong has never asked for a single thing from the base." Not only that, he found and provided many supplies in the base. These are all sent by the people in the base, because Miss Wei was seriously injured when she was guarding the southern border last time, and they sent it over by themselves. We, Mr. Chung, have never asked for it. Your next car. Talking to you is exhausting. If Chief Su hadn't confirmed that you are guests, you should have been hanged on the wall by the crowd just now. Liao Jilan got out of the car without saying a word. After Zhang Manman got out of the car, he dragged Liao Jilan and the patrol team in the car to apologize bitterly. "I'm really sorry. We're new here. Please forgive me for being ignorant. Thank you for sending us here." The patrol team leader looked for the sake of Zhang Manman's pure and sweet appearance. He reminded her, "You should pay attention when you go in later. We promise that we don't care about these slanderous things, but Ms. Wei is very defensive. If you let her hear it, then but even a layer of skin has to be peeled off." Zhang Man nodded repeatedly. Because they were not notified that they could enter, they specifically explained you must first ring the doorbell on the stone pillar. After approval, someone will meet you, or you will bear the consequences. Zhang Man drove away after the patrol team drove away. Just walked to the access control device, just about to ring the doorbell. As a result, Liao Jilan went straight in, still muttering, "There is no door here. What kind of access control is there? It's unnecessary." Zhang Man hadn't had time to stop him. Then I saw the vines on both sides come alive, crawling like a black snake, and then suddenly soared into the air and flew towards to wrap around Liao Jilan, who stepped in without permission. Aji. Chapter 158. Because my brother loves me the most. When Yan Yang and Wei Ran drove to the border. Not only was Liao Jilan wrapped up in the ground by vines, but he was also entangled by various plants. Even with his mind control abilities, he couldn't move a single point. Instead, the plants entangled him even tighter after he used his consciousness to attack to no avail. Wei Ran didn't even get out of the car, but just lowered the car window, put her arms on the side of the car, and looked at Liao Jilan, who was entangled with only one pair of eyes, with interest. Laughed a few times. I said, "You are young and small. Why do you always have to suffer a little before you are willing to stop? Otherwise these plants would have strangled you the moment you fought back." Zhang Manman was so frightened that his face paled. Wei Ran remembered that Liao Jilan was unable to speak for 2 days because of her strange ability. She hurriedly said to Wei Ran, I'm sorry, we didn't mean it, but we just went in because we thought there was no door here." Yan Ying got out of the driver's seat, walked to Zhang Manman's side and comforted, "Don't worry, I'm here, your friend will be fine." Only then did Zhang Manman feel relieved. Yan Ying turned to look at Wei Ran in the car, pointed to the man on the ground who was entangled like a mummy, and asked with a smile, "Xiao Ran, this is the person Nan Feng said Cheng Yi was playing a mole when he came back?" Wei Ran couldn't help laughing out loud. "Isn't it?" At night, the living room on the first floor of Yehidao Villa. Mu Zicheng and Wei Ran were sitting in the middle seat on the sofa, while Xiao Bai obediently lay beside her legs and played with her trousers. Before Chen Wei and the others heard that Wei Ran was not in Yehi Island the first time she woke up, so they didn't bring Xiao Bai there, so Xiao Bai has been very attached to her since Wei Ran came back. Gu Ming Jiang Nanfeng, Chen Wei and Su Yi played their favorite pastime again in the side hall mahjong. And Liao Jilun and Zhang Man sat on the sofa opposite Mu Zicheng very upright. Because after they finally came to the villa, they realized that not to mention the terrifying power level of this group of people, even the pets they raised were so unique. It turned out to be a giant lion. And this lion actually has supernatural powers, even surpassing him in level. Although Liao Jilun is young and energetic, his instinct to fear large animals is still uncontrollable. Mu Zicheng frowned slightly, looked at the two people in front of him, and said coldly, "Where is the person I want? Didn't bring it. I can also design and sew white veils." Zhang Mengxi was afraid Liao Jilun said something to offend Mu Zicheng before he spoke. "You. The person you mentioned is my mother, but she is too weak to take a car." Wei Ran looked at Zhang Manan and said with a smile, "Did you also study design before?" Before going to Cotton Man Mountain, Mu Zicheng heard that there was a base there, and at the same time he also heard that there was also a designer who was famous for designing veils there. Zhang Mengxi shook her head lightly and said, "No, it's just an extracurricular hobby, all taught by my mother." She was afraid that Wei Ran would think that her craftsmanship was not good, so she quickly said, "Although I haven't studied formal classes, my works have participated. I participated in the most authoritative competition in China before, and won the championship." Although Mu Zicheng had no expression on his face, Wei Ran knew that Mu Zicheng was not satisfied. She smiled sweetly and hugged his strong arm, coquettishly. "Brother, I think she's pretty good. I'm about the same age as her and I can communicate and adjust better. Do you think it's okay?" Mu Zicheng still had a cold and handsome face, but there was warmth in his eyes and a smile on the corner of his mouth. Ran can say anything. As long as you like it, you can do anything. Wei Ran put her chin on his shoulder and smiled so much that her eyes crooked. "Brother is so nice. I love my brother the most, and I will listen to whatever my brother says in the future, without any hesitation." Mu Zicheng chuckled softly, the other hand stretched out, pinching her small face with slender fingers. "Oh. Then I told you not to have a partial eclipse at dinner tonight. Why didn't you listen? Ha ha ha." Wei Ran sneered and turned him. He put his hand on his lips and kissed lightly without any trace, and then pretended, "Isn't it what I said just now? I will definitely listen to it in the future. I said this every time, but I didn't do it every time." But Mu Zicheng is still doting on him. "You're the only one who dares to lie to me because my brother loves me the most." The two of them sprinkled bowl after bowl of dog food in front of Liao Jilun and Zhang Man. Liao Jilun looked on coldly. It was not the first time he saw it. He was forced to eat for several hours in the tent that time. Later, part of the reason why he had no love in his life was because Mu Zicheng and Wei Ran didn't care whether there were other people around or not, whether it was inappropriate for children or not. They just kissed each other. He was really afraid that Zhang Man would be taken badly. Looking at Zhang Man in a blink of an eye, I found that she was so engrossed that stars appeared in her eyes. He nudged her to bring her back to her senses. "Hey, what are you doing?" Zhang Man still stared intently at the greasy two people opposite, full of yearning. I didn't expect that such a cold leader of the southern border would have such a side, and there is such a big contrast with Sister Xiaoran. There is so much love between him and Sister Xiaoran. The person I will marry in the future must also love me like this, otherwise, I will definitely not marry. Liao Jilun rolled his eyes. There was another quarrel without exception in the side hall. He even dropped a chair. Liao Jilun and Zhang Man were taken aback by the sudden arrival, and looked towards the side hall behind. The louder, the fiercer. There is a rhythm of fighting at any time. Yan Yang brought 2 glasses of juice and placed them in front of them. "I'm sorry, the people at home are quite noisy, and the volume of talking is a little louder. Please forgive me." The two smiled awkwardly. It's not just loud volume. But soon Zhang Man's attention was attracted by the juice that Yan Yang brought, and he was shocked. This juice. Yan Yang smiled quietly. "The dishes cooked tonight are relatively greasy and spicy. I don't know if it suits your taste. This cup of coconut juice and kiwi fruit can relieve tiredness. Try it." Zhang Man couldn't wait to drink it, but was blocked by Liao Jilun. He wondered, didn't it mean that everything that grows in the soil is already inedible? How can there be fruit? Freshly squeezed. Wei Ran took the juice handed over by Yan Yang. You'll still be cautious, you're not just impulsive. Then, in front of him, he took a sip and fed it to Mu Zicheng, who was beside him. I'm not. Hey Zhang Man. Zhang Man took a big sip while he was not paying attention. Liu Jilun couldn't stop him, and couldn't help cursing what a foodie who was not afraid of death. From tonight you will know if you have dinner at home, and you will eat it all at once, regardless of whether others have poisoned you or not. Mu Zicheng put the cup back into Wei Ran's hand, and when he turned to look at Liu Jilun, he said in his usual cold tone, from now on, you will live in the villa next door, and you can't leave until the wedding is over. Liu Jilun just thought he retorted, but Zhang Manan excitedly spoke before him. Yeah, okay. He gritted his teeth. This stuff is just for eating. This is simply hopeless.